Well, hey, y'all. Welcome to the podcast here. Joseph, one of your pastors here. Delighted to have Seth Hathcock, community member, band member in the 1045 Modern Band, dad to 4 kids, spouse, lives in the neighborhood, is actually my neighbor just across the way. We could probably fly my drone over a couple of houses and drop something. Do we need an Oak Grove drone?
Yeah.
But maybe a delivery service, maybe communion wafer.
Yeah.
Could probably get that on there. Glad to have Seth with us here to talk today about his experience in the Vision team, and specifically in talking about the growing in our faith portion of our vision. One of the people who connect, grow, and live out our faith in the world. And so delighted to have you here. Again, a gentleman who plays more instruments than you can hold up fingers, does a lot of things in the community, as well as works in lifelong learning and education in the corporate world, but has worked in church world, worked at Oak Grove for a while in the dark ages before children.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. But we're glad to have you here with all those things representing and to welcome you here to the podcast. So glad you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about today, but also I'd love for people on the podcast. Again, this is our 3rd episode in this new thing we're doing in podcast land. But I do want to hear some about your experience as a member of the Vision team.
Yep.
You were on the team of about 12 people, lay people, and a couple of staff sort of listening in, and how we came up with this vision for the church to be an inclusive place, to be a place where we connect and grow and live as we live out our faith in the neighborhood and in the world. I'd love to hear some of your sort of thinking back on the vision process and things that you saw or heard that were either surprising or confirming for what you see happening at the church.
Yeah, I think that the vision process was just really refreshing. As someone who has been here for a while, we love the people here, love that this is our tribe. And the thing that was really great about it was that we had representation across a lot of different generations. And so our church is great because of the diversity in the generational aspect of things. And just the voice, I think even the youth who might have been a little bit timid at first found their voice. And even if they didn't, we made sure to include them and to prompt them to contribute to the conversation. And so that would be the first big surprising thing, was just the representation, I think, was there. We represented all of the different facets of the church, which I think is great. I think that another surprising thing about it was just the involvement and the participation from everyone. Everybody was so all in. The hours and hours and hours that we spent, I don't think there was never a point where someone seemed to be, I'm getting tired of this, or wow, when are we going to be done? It was just all of the responsibility that we had to represent the church in the visioning committee. And there were a lot of hours for sure.
Yeah. I remember hearing over email and otherwise how many hours y'all are spending on the process. And again, this was a 6 to 8 month process where you listened to what the church was saying. We prayerfully engaged in meetings and conversations and groups and individuals, surveys, all these things to get data points, over 1,600 data points to hear organically, and then for you all as a vision team to sort of collate it, sort it, brand it, flavor it, and then listen carefully for where you felt God calling us to do that.
Yeah, I think I remember one night where I was at Jonathan Merrill's house. He and I had partnered up for going through some of the data. We had all kind of broken off so that we could divide and conquer, and it was about 10:15 at night, and we both looked at each other and said, now might be a good time to go watch some football or just call it.
Or like go to sleep.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it was definitely something that we took very seriously, and we wanted to go out and find what the congregation wanted and where the congregation wanted to go. We collected a lot of data points. We sat with people. We talked with people. It wasn't just a survey, reading data, categorizing it. It was actually getting in and talking to the people. And I think that what we found was there was a hunger. Sometimes a hunger to stay the same, sometimes a hunger to change, sometimes a hunger to see what we came up with. And so we tried to take all of that and discern it into what you have today.
I'm glad to hear like the process was enjoyable and a lot of work. I know it was. But again, the only reason we made it through that process so successfully is because of the work of you and other people on the team. So thanks for doing that. And I think it's a pretty remarkable statement of faith and encouragement, but also practical, like, right? In Methodism and in our faith tradition that we come out of as Methodists, out of the Christian Church of England, John and Charles Wesley were big on practical faith things. It was personal piety and holiness and social holiness. You had to have both things in order to be living out a real Christian experience. And one of the things that is in the document that came out of the vision team was this idea of growing and growing in your faith. And there's different ways, different data points, but also different ways that the team expressed that. So what would you say are some of the main things about how people can maybe grow in their faith?
Yeah, so I'm in corporate learning and development, and I like to kind of equate it to a learner. So do internal employee education and external customer education. And when you look at a learning journey, you want to look at people not as just one single unit where they're all coming in the same and you have to teach them the exact same thing to get them somewhere. Everyone comes in at different stage of skill and education, and so we have to account for that. And so similarly, I think here at the church, the Big C Church, we have people who come in at different walks in their faith journey. And so as best we can, try to set up mile markers or tent poles along that journey so that you might be around this marker or you might be around this marker, but we have a place for you to start no matter where you are in your journey. And I wouldn't say that there's a piece of content or there's an event for every single piece, but at least we can give a thematic look at where someone should start. If you've never been at church, start here. If you're returning after a few years, start here.
Sure.
If you're coming in fully engaged from another place because you've just moved into the area or you really like the modern worship band, especially the keyboard player, perhaps you'll start here. And so this idea of a push and pull mentality where perhaps the church is pushing certain things, certain events, certain studies, certain things that to people in an active manner, and then congregants are pulling certain things because they're very excited or they want to deepen in certain areas in their faith journey. So I think the term that we used was bespoke, and I think that's actually a pretty accurate representation of what we were hoping and the things that we were pulling out of the data and the conversations that we were having, just that there was a hunger amongst our congregation that they really wanted to be able to actively participate, but they also wanted to have some things handed to them in certain ways, which I understand. Coming out of the pandemic, there's definitely a re-engagement, I think, that is happening.
Yeah, so the word bespoke comes out of fashion. I, as a double girl dad and spouse, watch a lot of fashion shows. So bespoke is the idea that you can create something tailor-made, and you can also just modify something off the rack. In the disability community, a lot of us do that for our kids. So Target and other places now are making some children's clothing that works for disability community. And I know in your wife's work, she sees that too. But we've always had to modify things, right? Any number of us, you buy this thing and it sort of works, or you need to modify it, shape it to make it fit exactly what you need. In the world of artisans and crafts makers, all the way from woodworkers like Jesus, all the way through to artists and folks now, you take something you have, you modify it to be what you need, and you make it work. Tim Gunn's famous phrase, make it work.
Make it work.
So that's sort of, I think, practical in our faith, right? Mm-hmm. There are so many sort of standard Christian things. And in Methodism, we have very practical means to try and address those methods. That's how the name Methodist got. Those Methodists have a method for everything. And we're like, hey, we like that name. We'll keep it. But in our church here at Oak Grove, we have a lot of sort of standard programming things we do. Mm-hmm. We also have a lot of ways people can get involved in growing their faith, from small groups and Sunday school classes, Bible studies, online things, all the digital content side of the world, and other new things we'll be rolling out in this vision process in the next 3 to 5 years. But the thing I love about that is that people can find their place amongst that. The big thing I see about how people figure out what you need if you're a person of faith, wherever you might be in your faith life, is trying to figure out where am I in this process and what do I want to get involved in?
Right. I think that's in a lot of ways where the church can help define those pathways, I think is the word that we use, or journeys, and to say, let's just have a very easy conversation. Just try to get an idea of where you might fall within this journey or within this pathway, and then let us help kind of slide you into that space. So let's take a topic, Jonah and the whale.
Yeah.
I think if we had something around faith or around Jonah, it would look a little different for children's ministry. It would look a little different on a youth D group on a Sunday morning. It would look different on a sermon that Beth or another pastor is giving. And it would probably look a little different if you were in a small group. And I think that, and then if I'm doing my own quiet time or my own study, I'm probably going to take a little bit different out of that based on everything else that I'm hearing. And so perhaps it's not the church's role to say, here's everything around Jonah, but here are some topics around Jonah that each group could take and then make their own, tailor in the shoulders if needed to,
Sure.
or take up the hem if needed in this area.
We're now way beyond my understanding of fashion and purview. I have a long way to go. I do think part of what's really helpful about this analogy about faith and growing is both the church's role in this, but also the role of the individual who's coming to faith, wherever you might be in your faith life. Often in churches, and I'm glad that Oak Grove is a church that wants people to have some of their own work involved in it, right? We have to do the work. That it's not something that's just handed to you. Here is your entire meal kit catered from Moe's. If you're making tacos, you need to, maybe you don't need to make the tortillas from scratch. Just start with the kit and then make your meal and eat it together.
There's a lot of analogies, a lot of good analogies around here.
Well, but some people in some versions of American Christianity, it's I want to come to the buffet and pick what I want, and you will make it for me, and I will eat it.
Yeah.
I will come back next week, and I'm hungry again. Well, the model over and over we see inside of mature Christian spirituality is not a consumer mentality.
Yeah.
It is absolutely this model of wherever I am, the church can start and meet me there and engage with my interests and help me get involved in that. And then how do I direct my path from there? What sort of spiritual directions might I go on this journey of faith and growing? One of the key parts of this for me with the church is relationships with people, not just the pastors. I mean, yeah, we're paid to be, my dad calls me a professional Christian. I have been to school twice for it. Every Thanksgiving, as soon as I started seminary, it's like, and Joseph will now lead the prayer.
Ooh, yeah.
So,
my brother-in-law's the same way.
Yeah,
it's always like,
always.
Where's preacher man?
Yeah.
Time for the blessing.
That's the blessing.
Yeah.
So the good part of that is, we have amazing staff, amazing lay people in leadership, and it is the job of every person in the church to help people along their spiritual journey. Part of the reason we do church together is that, as my favorite creed we say from the Church of Canada, we are not alone. We live in God's world. And then it ends with thanks be to God that we are not alone. We bring ourselves, however, all the good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between we have with us. God is excited about that at receiving us. This church is excited about that, receiving us. We meet people who have affinity, who have kids in the school system and are trying to live this life together, or wherever age or stage we might be, but also inside of our spirituality, to meet other people who are in that same phase. Through Sunday school classes, small groups, all that.
I think if you look throughout the Bible, there are people who were called, who were potentially reluctant to be called. And so I think similarly in our faith, we can buy in, right?
Yeah.
Say, I'm here. Raise your hand. I'm here. You can do nothing potentially beyond that if you choose. Should you, could you, will you be called to do something else? I think is the question that comes in. And our gospel is a bit uncomfortable at times. And so all of these people who are being called were very uncomfortable. And so there's a point at which it's less about sitting in the row, in the pew, wherever you might be, and it's going and doing something. And that might be uncomfortable for some. And I think that that's part of growth, is the tension or the amount that you can tolerate the uncomfortableness.
Yeah, and I think there are certain seasons where like I'm ready for this uncomfortableness, and certain seasons where I'm like, I need a breather.
Absolutely.
And the church is absolutely a place of sanctuary, a place of rest and solace, comfort in times of need, and also a place of challenge. Like
Yep.
you were saying about this, the uncomfortableness of being called. uh, all of us are called to do God's work in the world. Pastors, lay people, kids, older adults, everybody. And the great thing about our church is we have this intergenerational, multi-generational approach with all these places and spaces, new young adult ministry starting up, all these things that are happening as a result of our vision process and the great resources of the church and community that are helping people grow in their faith.
I think that pro tip that usually the size of the people attending can tell how much tolerance of uncomfortableness you might have. So Sunday morning, you can literally walk through the door, sit down, participate, and leave and not talk to anybody.
Sure.
So introverts, hello. I'm gonna have to take a nap after this. But then you can get progressively smaller, and the tolerance for uncomfortableness, I think, goes up, goes down, where you then go to a Wednesday night study. There could be opportunity to participate in conversation. You go to Sunday school. Maybe the uncomfortableness or the call is, hey, we need a teacher in 2 weeks. Sure. Okay. I could do that. Never done it before, but maybe I'll try it.
Yeah.
All the way down to small groups where you're in a very intimate conversation with other people, a few other people. And so I don't think that if you're coming in, you've never been to church, this is your first time, maybe you're listening to this and you're like, how did I even stumble across this? I was looking for the Oak Grove hunting show. I don't know. It doesn't mean that you have to go and be one-on-one with somebody on the street and trying to lead them to the church or into faith. It could just be going to church on a Sunday morning, and that's growth.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to think about. Sort of, it's not a one size fits all. It's not like these are the requirements. It's about belonging to this community and then finding ways to get plugged in ways that both help you express your faith and learn and grow and explore that lifelong learning part of it. And then also find ways where you contribute back to the community and to other people. One of my favorite analogies for church from a famous saint whose name I can't recall at this moment on the podcast, it was, I'm just a beggar who has found the bread and I'm showing other beggars where the bread is. We do this in our life about so many things that we find meaningful, from restaurants to food items to trips of a lifetime or whatever it is. We share those things in the same way we share about our faith communities and places where we have found belonging and meaning making. And we do that for other people, joining together in that way. Well, Seth, as somebody who's really involved in the community and the church community, what are ways you see for people to get involved as they grow their faith here at Oak Grove?
Yeah, like I said, I think that there's a wide spectrum that Oak Grove offers, which is so fantastic. And so if you're looking to re-engage with the church, maybe it's as simple as committing to come once a month to church again. Yeah, I haven't been in a few months. Let me come back.
Yeah, check out the live stream.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
Hashtag OGMC. The fall is a great time. There's a lot of programmatic stuff that is coming back around with school starting back up. And so if you are looking to get into a small group, find a staff member, find a way that you can plug in. Also, through children's ministry, we also like to do trunk or treat. That might just be pulling your car in, because we're always looking for trunks for people to decorate the back of their car and hand out candy. So maybe your way of serving or growing is to push a little bit, because you're going to talk to people, you're going to interact with people while you're passing this out. So maybe you're dressed as Ted Lasso, putting out candy. So hashtag Ted Lasso. So there's that. I also think that all of the ministries really are kind of resetting and starting afresh. So if you have youth, if you have children, it's a great time, the fall, to plug in.
And our senior adult ministry has all these things that are geared specifically towards those demographics. As well as our Wednesday night programming, the midweek stuff that we do, midweek dinner plug, because you don't have to cook it or clean it. You show up and eat it, and then you go and hang out and do Bible study or children's choirs.
Yeah, and for adults, I think children's choir is a great example. For adults, rather than potentially just sitting around while your kids are in children's choir, there's programming, there's a study that's happening on Wednesday nights during that time. Perhaps you're just going to find some friends and walk around the parking lot for a while. There are small micro moments in which you can start to interact with people, to start to try to grow. So I think that Oak Grove is a perfect place to be able to do that. I grew up different denomination, different area, and it was Wednesday night dinner and Sunday mornings, and that was about it. And so we're very blessed to have such a wide array of programs that, again, you can just, depending on where you are, you can just kind of slide into.
Yeah. Well, it's helpful to hear all that from your perspective as someone who knows what's happening inside the church, but again, has kids and multi-generational family and your family as well, for ways to people to get connected, to grow in their faith and to live it out. I think there's no like clear lines between some of these events as is it connect, grow, or live. I mean, the trunk or treat, if you're developing relationships with people, that's connecting, but it's also helping you like push the boat out a little bit in that grow area. And then also maybe you're helping someone else connect with the church in a way that's you living your faith out. So there's something really powerful about the vision itself and how it helps us to think discreetly and uniquely about those areas of ministry, but also to recognize that all the ways God is at work at our church, here in the Oak Grove community, in the neighborhood, can all be a part of the vision of the church.
I think that's a great point. Don't necessarily think, oh, I need to grow, and so I need to find something specific to grow, or I need to go live out, and I need to go find something. If you're unsure, just do it. That's the other beautiful thing, is that exactly what you just said, that you're going to get something out of it no matter what. And when you turn around, you're going to say, wow, that was a really great way to live out my faith, or wow, I really connected with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think one of the things I tell people when they're visiting Sunday school classes, so if you're checking out Sunday school classes, is go check it out a couple or 2 or 3 times. Go check out another class a couple or 2 or 3 times, and then make some decisions about where you fit best. Same for small group, same for which style of worship you might enjoy. Oak Grove, again, we got the 8:30 traditional, 11 o'clock traditional, as well as 10:45 modern. We have families who sort of decide where they're going that Sunday. Hey, we're traveling to grandma's. We're leaving later in the day, so we're going to 8:30. Or we got a soccer game in the morning, so we're coming for 11. Or we really want to hear the band this week, so we're going to there's all these different ways that we as a church offer, again, those good options for people, but it's not so many options overwhelming, in a way that allows us to live out our faith and to grow in our faith.
Right. So our family, my wife and I, participate in the Go Forth Sunday School class. And the great thing about that group and other groups within the church is that you'll find, I think, that as one of these pillars starts to build and mature, that the others become easier and easier. So we do a lot of events outside of Sunday morning to help connect with each other. And those moments bring us closer and closer together, so that when someone needs to teach Sunday school, or someone needs to do something that perhaps might fall into the grow category, that there's a comfort there that, oh, maybe I am introverted and I don't like talking, or I'm not comfortable leading Sunday school, but maybe I am with these people who I experience life with, and I see at this children's ministry event, or someone that I parked next to at trunk or treat, or whatever it might be. And so there is no wrong answer. There is no wrong event. There is no wrong way to plug in. However you're comfortable, plug in.
Well, thanks so much, Seth, for your encouragement and for being here on the podcast. Glad to have you here as, again, someone who knows this digital realm so well in your work, but also somebody who's so connected to the work and ministry of the church, from volunteering with the band all the way through for children's ministry, for all the things, and as a fellow bearded dad who wears monochromatic things all the time. So glad to have you with us. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thanks for all y'all watching and listening this week. Again, more podcast episodes coming out every Tuesday morning. You can find it on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and all the places where you listen to podcasts. There's also a video version on YouTube as well, if that's exciting for you. Well, in the meantime, be well, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.